Hello, once again, I want to share with you a topic on professionalism and ethics in education. I know you have gone so far with my fellow teacher, and he has almost covered him. According to his feedback, it's almost a 4 module. And to complement, I would like to share with you a subtopic of a topic within the same course on professionalism and ethics in education. As I said earlier, when I was introducing this course to the class, I said that this course has two parts. Part one is on ethics, and the second part is on professionalism. And then at the end of the lecture, we're going to make a synthesis of these two parts to make a meaningful interpretation. What do we mean when we speak about teacher professionalism or professionalism and ethics in education? I will try to explain the intricate nature of these common terms you have covered in former classes: morals, morality, and the law. Underneath, you have to also to be aware of the meaning of the terms values, ethics itself, because you see they relate, okay, they inherently link from one term to another. So in this class of today, I'm going to discuss with you the intricate nature of morals, morality, and the law. When I say intricate, I try to show you this mosaic. Let me try to enlarge the screen. When I say intricate, I'm trying to show this mosaic. Can you dismantle this picture, this mosaic kind of picture? This picture, this is a result of linked together different color patterns that gives us this whole picture. Let's talk about intricate. There's inherent linkage of these parts of the picture which make the whole. So the same case talk about morals, morality, and the law. In nature, they are linked together, and therefore sometimes it's become difficult to differentiate or to separate one from the other. Let's move and see what is morals. I'm trying to revisit from the earlier classes you have already covered by the teacher in the series of lectures you conduct in the classes. So I won't go back to define morals. Instead, I'll try to explain in the context of the interrelatedness of these three terms: morals, morality, and the law. When said about morals, this refers to an individual's own principles regarding right and wrong. That's individualized concept of morality. This is how individual has this disposition of an individual when it comes to right and wrong conduct. When I talk about ethics, that is a group principle, but with the morals, it's individual principle, how one positions himself within a group when it comes to defining right and wrong conduct. It is the guiding principles on deciding between what one believes to be right or wrong. So it's about a belief idea. So you see, let me try to highlight this one. This one is about what one believes. So talk about morals. It's about individual belief when it comes to right and wrong. Remember, ethics is a group of principles which guides the group. Principles that guide the group when it comes to deciding which is wrong and which is right when on the decision-making process. But with the morals, that's an individual which comes from values. How one values are linked that later define morals of a particular person. So it is the guiding principles on deciding between what one believes to be right or wrong. Or sometimes even in a group, we can have our ethical standards, but still we can differ one to another because of our moral, because of our values, about our backgrounds. So morals about an individual belief when it comes to right and wrong. They are ethical principles which are always the same, having its roots on individuals' values. It defines an individual. We talked about values in the previous lectures, but with this one, we talk about how one position his values, because these values will later define his moral standards. So they are ethical of an individual, if I may say that context. So they are ethical principles which are always the same, having its root on an individual value. So within a group is the composition of individuals. So within a group, we have different backgrounds. When it comes to ethical standards, we have come to agree that there are minimal standards to define our right and wrong conduct. But when it comes to an individual perspective, you find that every individual has on its values, which define his morals and the way of conducting, the way of making decisions, whether it's right or wrong. And therefore, sometimes some of the sentiments and some of the resentments will always be backed with the personal morals on the issues. And then remember, talking about it, our values are defined by our religious background or ethical, belief systems, our family background, whatsoever. So morals is the issue of an individual. Relationship between the values, ethics, and the morals. I want you to be packed with it. I want to remind you from the issues which has been covered, values, ethics, and how they relate to morals. Because we know that if you go back to the chain of ideas, you find that underneath ethics is values, and underneath morals is values. We define groups because it's composing of individuals. We define an individual ways of deciding right and wrong because of the values one has been attached to. And therefore, I want to see the relationship between the values, ethics, and the morals. How do they relate? Let's start this kind of a picture, which will simplify. It's a model. I adopted this kind of model. We try to, which I have modified it from other sources so that I can give you a clear picture of how these three relate from each other. In the far left, you have values. This one, we have values. And then we have morals in the middle, and then we have ethics in the middle. In other words, I'm trying to say is that ethics comes from values, but ethics, because ethics is a group principles. This one will always be a composition of individuals morals when it comes to debatable level, when it comes to level of deciding which one will get our group best. That's what get ethics to the group. That's fine. Football has got their ethics. Doctors have got their ethics. Teachers have got their ethics. But you delve in, you find that underneath it, there is values which guide individuals when it comes to debating, so that they strike the trade-off between which way to take the group, which will guide us, the actions being right or wrong. So, what's the values? Values, as this arrow shows, values, these are persons' foundations and the ability to judge between right and wrong. They include deep root system of beliefs, intrinsic worth. Intrinsic worth. That's how someone sees himself as worth from inside. We talk about the other class I was explaining on how one should define. Everyone has got a price. That's what we talk about intrinsic worth. How you define your worthiness from inside. How you get yourself as worth as compared to others. So an answer and not universally accepted. The values not universally. What is your value? It's not necessarily my value. What is my value? It's not necessarily your value. And also is my value and your value. It's not necessarily the overriding values to our companions. So values is personal. accepted person, not universally acceptable. However, in the group conduct, you come to find there must be a group value, some values which are commonly acceptable to the minimum standards. And morals, these are systems or actual system of beliefs that emerge out of person's core values. So out of your values, you get morals. System which will guide you to define the right and wrong conduct. System which will guide you in the decision-making process as an individual. They are specific or context-driven rules through given person's behavior. So our morals will automatically define or guide our behavior and our character. And finally, ethics, they are vehicles to our morals. They are morals in action. How we do things in a collaboration. How do we do things together? How we combine together as a group to perform a group activity in harmony. How we judge one is going wrong or one is going right from individuals' perspective. That's what called is a vehicle to our morals. That's they are morals in action. When individuals are in a group and they perform certain activities, that guiding principles that they work in harmony, they make decisions harmoniously, is what we define them as ethics. So, in very nutshell, values, these are the most expressive values. These are the things which are more of worth to an individual, and they are subjective. They're not binding to the other groups. They are personally acceptable, not necessarily universally acceptable. Then morals is system of making decisions on right and wrong by an individual person, and this is also stemming us back with how one values what are the worth things which are worth somebody, and then ethics are principles of the group, how the group set aside the principles which will guide them in deciding the right and wrong. All right, let's see morals and ethics juxtapose. When I say juxtapose, to juxtapose is to take two things together and then you make a kind of comparison. Juxtapose, you take two things together and you make a comparison. Okay, I can just suppose I take two mobile phones. I can just suppose what I see from this mobile and this mobile, and then from there I come out with my own understanding from the two. So we want to see morals and ethics juxtaposed. When we put together morals and ethics, what do we see in the broader picture? Okay, let's see. This this one is another extract I took it from other sources, and for complementarity and for trying to explain things more clear, I have adapted it to try to explain in nutshell how you compare morals and ethics, because the values no compromise is well quite understood. You see, when you go in a house, when you enter your house, there are things which are more valuable and things which are more. It's about worthiness. But we talk about a moral system of deciding right and wrong. So we want to benchmark. This is a point of reference. A point of reference, a point of reference. We see this column, and then this is where we compare. We have 1 and we have 2. How can compare these two? Okay, benchmark the point of reference. Let's see contextual meaning. Contextual meaning, this is the meaning in a given context, meaning in a given organization, meaning in a given environment. Okay. How do we compare the morals and ethics when you talk a contextual meaning? How do they differ in their contextual definitions? Morals, these are personal principles or habits with respect to right or wrong conduct. Ultimately, a personal compass of right and wrong. This is a compass. Okay, you remember in geography classes, talking about compass. Compass, we have the 4 compass, okay, north, south, east, and then west. So take this as a compass. It's a compass which tries to direct you at which point, where are you belonging? Where do I belong? So this is ultimate. This is a personal morals. Just ultimately a personal compass of right and wrong. It will define you at which position you are right or wrong, personally or as an individual. It is a system decision by an individual or with regard to right and wrong conduct. We talk about ethics. It's a compass of right and wrong to the group. Okay, so you see these two words are very important: group and person. Let me try to be a bit neat. Group and that, and the person. You see, so morals compass, personal compass of the election, right and wrong, but ethics is compass the election at right and wrong to the group. That's about the contextual meaning when positioned somewhere. And I'll come to another point of difference: legitimacy for action. Legitimacy for action. When do we make action legitimate? Legitimate. The legal acceptability of the action. Okay, why do we regard this action right or wrong? When it comes to morals, we say action is right or wrong because it's a personal belief. I say it is right or wrong because I believe something is right or wrong personally, from my values, from the established values. I would say this is wrong, this is right. Regardless, my judgment is acceptable to another person, but myself, I said, the action is being judged as right or wrong because I believe it's right. But we come to the ethics, it is because society said it is right or wrong. It is the principles established by a group after having kind of consensus, after found some of references, to come to decision of the principles to guide our actions. So the action is right or wrong. The legitimacy for morals is personal. Legitimacy for ethics is a group or society. And then flexibility in form and the context. And how flexible is the uh, action when it comes to morals and ethics. Flexibility, nature of changing, flexible. Okay, in morals, usually it is consistent, though can change if an individual's belief changes. You see, there's a connection between belief, this value, because out of belief we have values. Remember, values also defined by belief system. Okay, values. So when our values changes, automatically our morals will change. So flexibility depends on change in values or belief system. So it is consistent. If I'm concerned with my belief, it will just remain there. Okay, but with the ethics, it depends on other definition. They tend to be consistent within this context, but can vary between context. What is the ethics to the group of footballers can not necessarily be to churchmen or whatsoever. So it will change depending on changing or definition to the group context. When the group say we have to change our principles of the law because of some of the advancement whatsoever, then that can change to that context. And let's see, other benchmark, we have action, authoritarian source. What is the source of authority to do the action? To the morals, it's personal conviction. I'm convinced why I should do this, but to ethics, there must be established code of ethics. There must be a code book. There must be some rules laid down, which person strictly following or adhere to those principles. So authority to judge that it's right or wrong, authority to judge the action, authority to the action is morals, is personal conviction, it's my conviction, okay? But with the ethics, it is contained in the code of ethics, as you have seen in the when we are defining on the professionalization. And again, acceptability. Okay, how acceptable is the section? Morals transcend morals, transcend cultural norms. When I say morals transcend cultural norms, it means that it goes beyond cultural norms. Sometimes tend to be so strict, even beyond our cultural norms. But ethics is governed by profession, board of profession. If you go to engineers, you find that there's professional guidelines, which if you go beyond, we say you're conducting and becoming. And the origin, remember in your definition, say that morals come from Latin, moralis, which is about open behavior and the man in society. But ethics, this also comes from Old French, late Latin, and the Greek ethos referred to customs or moral philosophy. So I'm quite confident that because it's just the complementation of what I've been just covered in the class. So I'm quite sure that you find it more edifying and adding some values to your studies. Okay, two terms related to morals. We talk about this the so-called amoral. Not don't separate it. Amoral is not. This is not. It's not equal to a moral. No. Okay, this is a moral. It's just these are two distinct words, a and moral. But amoral is a combined, a single word, amoral, which means someone with no sense of right or wrong. Like take the example of a child. When a child is born, he has no sense of right or wrong. But if someone, let's say, you take me as a Christian, you position me within Islamic ethics, I might find that I don't know anything with regard to Islamic ethical conduct. So sometimes a moral is someone with no sense of right or wrong. But there's another, say that think of a person who doesn't have foundation that comes within with sound set of values. He has no sense of values. So to him, he will have no morals with regard to that context. But when he has been educated, he knows his values and has been a part of the society, he has developed his morals, but conducting otherwise, we say it is immoral. Immoral is someone who knows right from wrong, but deliberately decide to violate, deliberately with a freedom of choice, decide to do the otherwise. We talk about cases like rape, stealing, murder, all those kind we call the immoral, because those things are conducting or engaging those of illegal activities or acceptable behavior. They are quite sure, they know that doing that is wrong, but they deliberately choose to do because of their personal interest and the unlawful, unacceptable gain. So these two terms, take note of them: amoral and immoral. Okay, let's go to morality now. Morality. What is morality? Having defined morals and morality, you see, morality is a word which comes from morals. If you cut this point, you have moral, but morality is like a noun, kind of a noun. I don't find what is morality. Morality has a wider scope in definition. Talk about morality. We are moving from individual to a larger society. Ethics is for group, but morality is for a larger society. Say, talk about the FIPA society. We talk about Tanzania society. We talk about Nyapusa society. That bigger society is when we find this word morality. So morality has a wider scope in definition. Morality is a doctrine or system of moral conduct pertaining to a wide society or group of people. Why a doctrine or system? We talk about doctrine. It is time-tested and acceptable. Doctrine. It's a kind of belief. Doctrine is a kind of belief taught and acceptable by a group. A belief, something which is taught and believed for a long time. It has historical background to be acceptable as something worthy by a larger society. Talk about Christian doctrine, Islamic doctrine, Buddhism doctrine, something, a belief system that has been acceptable by a wide society as a good conduct to guide that particular society. So morality may be defined as a coherent and a consistent. Okay, coherent, things tied together as a coherent and a consistent conduct or principles of behavior that hold account to have been refined through history and can be applied in everyday life of a society. So it's a society, okay? It must be as time-space doctrine, time-space, something studied and decided as a way of life to guide our conduct. We call it morality. So it must be in the everyday life of society. So remember, this is society. We talk about moral is individual, ethics is for small group, society is for a wider society. So you take note of that one. Therefore, we have to find the morality, dimension of morality, dimensions of morality, dimensions of morality. Normally, we have two dimensions. We have descriptive and normative dimensions. And again, I talked very much on these two words in my lecture 2, I suppose. Talk about the descriptive and the normative aspect of ethics. And therefore, with the morality also have the dimension of morality, that's descriptive and normative. But descriptive, what I mean, is examining our society's conduct. When we examine our society conduct, that kind of morality that is descriptive dimension of morality. Normative, when we tend to attach specific condition to logical being of society, we talk about normative morality, the norm of a society. Descriptive, how do we define our conduct as a society? That's what I mean by those dimensions. Let's see the characteristics of morality according to Kant's view. This is one of the scholars also have discussed in the class, and I'm very much sure with my fellow teacher did go in deep discussing the Kantian philosophical views with regard to ethics. According to Kant, there are quite a number of morality. First, it is abiding by a particular selection of loyalty or all and not as conformity with a universal impersonal structure. What I mean, it is abiding by a particular relation of loyalty, or we say awesome, kind of awesome, and not as conformity with the universal impersonal structure. When we talk about morality, we attach it to the loyalty you have to your society. There is no law that will enforce you, not necessarily to have a law to enforce you to kind of behavior of the society, no. Because it is a doctrine, it's a kind of belief, you find that yourself automatically being forced to live a kind of life so that to please your society. That's what I'm about to talk about, the loyalty. It is the loyalty which will make you be confined and comfortable with your society. So the universal impersonal structure of the society is not necessarily an enforcing power for you to live harmonious with your social members. It is because of loyalty you have to society which will make you be acceptable within your society. So that's one of the features of morality. It exists because of our loyalty. So those who are breaking the morality, who are going to conducting otherwise, they are not loyal to their society. So that's the first. Second, okay, I'll talk about the typical motivating force of non-universalistic morality is not respect, but love or fear. So it's not about respecting the rules put in place, but because you love and fear losing something from your society. That is the backing power, that is impetus behind you living harmoniously with the society or being a person according to your high standard of your social morality. And second, is that it is often attributed to moral values as an essential and necessarily feature is their overridingness. Okay, you see, morals is which gives moral values is the essence of existence. Okay, let me put it this way: moral values is an essence and necessary feature which hold people together. Overridingness that it is driving everybody in that society to live that way. Overridingness, putting things go together willingly in order election. So in other words, I'm saying that underneath morality is moral values. These people raise up with some kind of standards when come together, perhaps their morality in society, but perhaps their moral values in society is what become the good and the loyal people of a particular society. Let's talk about Tanzanian. Tanzanian, you see, everywhere you go, you will identify Tanzanian because of the way they act and they behave, even in a group. So because of their morality, they don't represent their country, even outside the other countries, because they have that loyalty to try to live what is acceptable as Tanzanian. So that overridingness is what puts them together. There is a kind of unseen rule, which is loyalty, stemming from moral values, putting people to go one certain direction, which define them as a common possible people belong to certain society. You go to Maasai, you find that you don't get a problem to identify the Maasai people because of their morality. They have their moral values, putting them together, and it becomes like an unseen law, that loyalty, which make them to move in what direction on that manner, define them as Maasai or Sukuma whatsoever. It's the same case also for Tanzania. You can identify them even because we are told, because of the manner and the way of their life. And third, we get to morality. That morality may be seen as more ambiguous term because it is often distinguishable from ethical, law, and the religion. So there can sometimes also there's a confusion. Sometimes we say that sometimes we tend to take law as morality, etiquette as morality, or sometimes religion is our morality. No, these are different terms as we see later, but sometimes there's a confusion. Morality. There's different to differentiate between morality either with etiquette or law and religion. So there are things I wanted you to capture, and therefore in your discussion you can read more sources given in our course outline to ensure that you have deep root understanding of those concepts. Oh, there's another fourth one. It has descriptive and the normative dimension. After I said in the area, sometimes it will define a moral conduct, but also it will dictate which norms you have to take to become who you're supposed to be in a particular society. All right. Let's see the difference between ethics and the morality. How do these two terms differ? Ethics and morality. We have seen moral and the morality. Let's see now ethics and the morality. Morality defines our own social character. Ethics dictate the inner working of a social system, the do's and the don'ts. Inner working of a social system. Society is composed of different groups. Let's take the example of Tanzania. Within Tanzania, where there are footballers, there are church, there are religious people, there are headsmen, there are so many different groups in the society. So those groups in society, they have their ethical standards to live as a group. But if you put them together, there is a kind of inertia, there is a kind of harmonious, there is a kind of tranquility, there is a kind of agreement to a certain level. That's find a peace in certain society. Regardless of different in society groups, regardless of the existence of different groups in the society, but you find that they live together harmoniously. That's because of these two terms. Because there is overarching moral values called morality. So morality defines our own social character as a society, who we are. But ethics, this dictates, forces how the small groups work harmoniously towards a good and wrong conduct. And second, ethics are based on moral codes. These are codified morals, are codified guidelines and principles adopted by members of a given group. But morality is a society aspect. Morality is a social system of conduct. It overrides, it overrides the whole society. For say we say Tanzanian, we have our morality, but within Tanzania's there are small groups adopted their principles of living together harmonious. If you go to scholars, you go to doctors, you go to lawyers, you go to nurses, they have ethical principles. But you put them together, they are Tanzanian. There's that moral standards they have to live to that, which appeal to the national standard or national level. Then the distinction between moral and the non, the distinction between moral and the non-moral, not amoral, moral and non-moral values in ethics is made from an external, while the morality is a theoretical perspective beyond all particular moral perspectives. We divide that is moral and non-moral values in ethics is from external, okay? But morality, this is a theory, agreed theory beyond all particular. It's a theory which goes beyond individual groups. We make a distinction between moral and non-moral in ethics from external standards, not internal, from external standards. But morality, distinction between it is a theory which is been accepted by a larger society, and that puts them together in a moral perspective. So those are the differences between ethics and the morality, and I'm sure I also can discuss it and find more in other sources. What is the function of morality? Of course, there are about 4 functions of morality. First is for individual oriented. It orients, it explains, it tells you who you are. It gives an orientation. When, as I've said, that you go to Tanzanians, Kenyans, Zambians, they have that morality. They have the general character which defines them whenever they happen to be. So one thing about the morality is for individual oriented. It orients you. It orients you who you are whatever happen to be. But again, it is that high standard level of living, that standard level of life you have to strive to reach to be acceptable in the society. It's like a goal you are trying to achieve within your moral standards to ensure that you are acceptable to the larger society. You find that people will term you as a good person or bad person because of how you are compatible to established moral standards of the society. Also, it's a social trust. Okay. Also, morality functions. Second function is social trust. A person with good morality will always be trusted whenever he happen to be. You see, sometimes we can have even here in the most, when we want to elect leaders, appoint some of the persons to be in some positions, it is because of how they are living to appeal the majority. Now come to larger ambitions in life. You want to be a politician. You only be acceptable to hold a position because you are trying to live to that higher morality, acceptable standard of moral life to the larger society. So it's another way to give social trust. People trust you because of how you live harmoniously with the larger society. That's another function of morality. It is because there are some set guidelines which you tend to guide to judge somebody as being right or wrong, good person or bad person, because of principles. So it's another idea for social trust. Again, easing social cooperation. When people are of moral standards, you see even the cooperation becomes easy. Go to the areas where there's no peace, people don't abide to their morality, don't abide to their moral standard of their nations. You find that there are kind of chaos, upheavals always, and therefore cooperation is very weak. But when there's good morality, also cooperation is very easy and promising. And then again, there's peace and conflict resolution. It is very easy to bring peace or solve conflicts when it arose when society is of moral standards. When the morality is good, peace is maintained, and whenever there's a rising of the conflict, it's very easy to solve. Thank you. Let's go back to the law. Already we have covered in the beginning, after I've talked about the intricate nature of morals, morality, and the law. And I'm sure you are gaining something and you can be able to compare and contrast. And let's see the issue of law. What is a law? A common definition: law, the system of laws which a particular country or community organizes as regulating the actions of its members and which it may enforce by the imposition of penalties. So, law, these are just agreed together sanctions. These are the system of rules which you have put in place to regulate your actions. If you do this, you are wrong, and therefore do this to collect you. And therefore it contains the so-called penalties. There are some penalties which if you do which is not acceptable, we penalize you. You do which is good, and you are safe. So these are just system of rules which a particular country or community or even a group reorganize and enumerate some rules which will regulate our actions. Remember, morals, morality, ethics, it's all about decision making. How action are judged being right or wrong. So laws is an enforcement, something which will be enforceable to regulate our actions. If you do right, you do wrong, there's something which will guide you, which will regulate your action. This is what we call law. It's about common definition. But in legal, a body of rules of conduct, of binding, legal force and effect, prescribed, recognized, and enforced by controlling authority. So there must be a controlling authority. We talk about them. the court, we talk about the magistrate, we talk about the judges. There must be a controlling authority to enforce those rules. Now, let us synthesize together. We put together morals, morality, and the laws. Morals, values, and ethics are strongly attached to a society, spirituality, and culture. This is according to United Nations and UNESCO. UNESCO. We say that these three terms, they are very connected. Morals, values, and ethics. Of course, this must come first. Okay, values, morals, and ethics. These are strongly attached to society. Every society, spirituality, and culture. If you go to the society, you go to belief system, you go to any culture, if you unpack, if you dig deep, you find that their values, their morals, their ethics. You cannot escape or deny existence of these three terms, because it is value which gives our morals, and it is morals which gives our ethics. So every society, every belief system, and every culture, to be existing in a harmonious group, it must be packed with values, morals, and ethics. Okay, let us see the so-called recognizable social normative. And I would like you to take note of this. It's very, very important. Recognizable social normatives, called recognized codes within a society. The so-called one is we call moral code. The moral code represents as a much broader set of normative controls and is identifiable by the inverse proportion to the severity of the sanction associated with the legal code. These moral codes, whether written or unwritten, there's prescribed issues which every society has, which can be a guiding principles to define action as being right or wrong. So talk about the moral code. We are saying that these are representations of a broad array of normative control, and you can identify them by the inverse proportional of the severity of the sanctions. How severe is the sanction attached to the violation of a certain code or acceptable rules, acceptable principles of life to that particular society. Inverse proportional, how severe is the sanctions attached to the action one will do as right or wrong. That's what we call the moral code. So, second, moral code, we talk about the issues agreed as defining our morality in a particular society. Second, we talk about the law. This is a legal code. It presents the minimum acceptable behavior of a particular group. So there must be acceptable behavior. If you go beyond, then you are guilty against that law. That is, societies tend to be more tolerant of moral violation than of violation of the law. You see, so in moral codes, we talk about the severity of with the legal code. In moral code, in moral code, in the morality per se, when you violate a moral code, there is no direct severe sanctions you get apart from social defined, or let me say this one, apart from maybe being chastised or being rejected by particular societies. On those older days, people were even taken away from one society to another. They were outcasted. That was the only sanction. But to talk about with the law, there must be some severe sanctions when you tend to violate the law. Etiquette, that's the acceptable manner. That's the acceptable manner uh, of conduct. This represents the broadest possible set of behavior expression of societies. Etiquette, you see how you organize your manner in a particular occasions. Normally in Tanzania, for example, when an elder passes by, you greet him by standing. Even if you have a hat on your head, you put it off. When you eat with him, you are welcome to dinner with your guest of honor. There's a way of eating. Don't eat in haste. Those are two to call etiquette. That manner of conduct by a person to suit a particular occasion. So those who violate the etiquette codes suffer the least serious sanction of all. Okay, if you don't, maybe you will not be invited the next time. That could be the sanctions. Or otherwise, you'll be of sometimes be downlooked because of not being educated enough. That's the only sanction. But there's no still sanction if you compare to the other, like the moral and the law. And again, we see while one might insert a host of hosting, I'm talking about on the issue of etiquette. Okay. While one may insert a host or bring disgrace to mismanner, violation of politeness are not treated as harshly as a violation of the law or the moral. That's what I was explaining. That maybe if you don't eat properly when you study with the guest of honor, the only you can get that next time will be not be invited to participate in the meal, and therefore that's all. You cannot compare with the moral code and the law. Moral code you can be outcasted from that society, but with the law you can be penalized even to some degree of even paying some money. It depends on which kind of violation you have made. And also to religious, number 4, religion like law, morality, and etiquette. Religion is a normative system also. It tells people how to behave. And of course, there's some kind of optimism. You behave this way because there's a promise you get at the end of your life. It's all about hope. And that's what binds people to do what they're doing under the religion. So you see, under religion, unlike the 3 systems mentioned earlier, religion usually entails a non-natural sanction. There's no natural. You see, with the moral codes, there's natural sanction. They will outcast you, or they will even call you before the elders. You can be even take a kind of attributes. You can be anyway. It's natural. It happens just in the environment. And also with the law, the same, it's naturally happening in the environment. Etiquette also happens in the environment. But with the religion, we expect another world to come. So it is usually non-natural sanctions for violation of the codes of conduct, because we promise about reincarnation. Maybe if you don't do good, when you reincarnate, you become an animal whatsoever. If you go to Buddhism whatsoever, we'll discuss later in the religious system in relation to ethics and the character. If you go to Christian, there is heaven, hell. To Islam also, heaven, hell. There are things which you do now, which will define you, who you become to be, who you become in the next generation. So it is one which has non-natural sanction. It is sanction is not natural. It's not happening in the environment. It's something that happen in the future, in the abstract world we anticipate to happen in the afterlife. One of the things that makes an analysis of morality difficult is the fact that these 4 different normative systems overlap, creating some sort of fuzz boundaries. Sometimes there's overlap between laws, religions, etiquette, morals. There's overlap unless someone is with a very clear mind to differentiate the 4. Otherwise, they are so confusing and therefore sometimes difficult to analyze, to make analysis of morality to a particular society. This is the mosaic, is kind of a picture. It's trying to see how this social normative relates. Yes, we have morality, we have law, we have religion, we have etiquette. This is morality, we have religion, we have law, and we have etiquette. You see, they share something in nature. They share something in nature. Okay, there's something in nature which, of course, we call it values. That's to say that even with religion, morality, law, whatsoever, there's something which tied to them together. Something tied them together. They meet somewhere in the middle, and therefore it's sometimes confusing to define. Someone can be doing the so-called good manner, not because he knows etiquette, no, it's because of religious background. Someone can be doing that because of blood background, can be that because of the fear of the law whatsoever. So there's a confusion, the first boundary between these four, and they have some difficulty to differentiate them. Okay, as I go to lash to conclusion, almost finishing this lecture, let's see the distinction between law and the morality. Okay, we say that law is distinguished from morality by having explicitly clearly open, written rules. Law, there is explicitly written rules, penalties, and officials who interpret the law and apply penalties. In the law, there must be written rules. Okay, what you have to do, what you have not to do. There's also, if you do this, don't do this, there's penalties that already. But also, there are officials with their levels to interpret and enforce the law. This is one of the distinction. This is one of the quite different feature of the so-called law. But with the morality, although there's often considerable overlap in the conduct governed by the morality and that is governed by the law, laws are often evaluated and changed on moral grounds. Okay, we say that wisdom is above the law. It's because even in the court, there's a committee of elders. They back up the judge. After the judge has heard out the proceedings, you normally sit and discuss with the elders to seek wisdom. Wisdom is above the law. So that we say that laws are often evaluated, whether good or bad, changed on the moral grounds. They must suit the requirement of the law. So they regulate our actions. So if they are extremely not suiting our interests as a society, we change them. And that's why always there's this bill of laws changing the law. So that's one of the functions of our House of Assembly, is to enact, evaluate, and change laws governing the state. But with the morals, with the morality, is quite different, because that is a belief, it's a doctrine of society for over the past of their life. So it's not easy to change morality. Of course, in the first point of it, morality is not written, but it's a doctrine, it's a belief accepted by society, but also difficult to change. And again, sometimes the interpretation of the law must make use of morality. That's what I'm saying, that wisdom is above the law. Sometimes when there's a contradiction of the law, morality is put in place to help interpret and interpret the law so that it suits the interest of the society. A law is a basic enforceable standards of behavior necessary in order for humanity to succeed, and which all people under that law are treated equally. So the law is that will have to action so that we become equally before the law. Whether that is happening in the practice, that's not good. It's not part of this class, but have to see the practicality of this one. Is the law treating every person equally, or sometimes with the misuse, absorb of the power by those being entrusted to enforce the law? So the law is the minimum standard to control our actions by society, and therefore by that function, all people become the same under the law. So those are the difference between morality and law. Let us see qualities of a moral person. Qualities of a moral person. Qualities of a moral person. Okay, normally, we see there's the so-called principles of moral education and the key question. These two are the things which will be used to judge what of a moral person. Principles of moral education and the key question that will define that conduct. So there are about 3 areas we have to consider: the autonomy, empathy, and transcendence. When we talk about autonomy, we talk about thinking of oneself. What is right or wrong for me? A moral person must have that capability to describe and define himself. We talk about the morals of an issue. He must be a moral person, a person to judge what is right for him. Secondly, is the so-called empathy. Empathy and the thinkers are two different words. Empathy, you put exactly the situation of another person. You must be able to differentiate between empathy and sympathy. Sympathy is just emotional feeling, but with empathy you go extreme. You put yourself in the position of another person to see whatever he's going through is also touching you the same. So this aspect of a moral person indicates showing care for others. How you treat others is very important. This is another aspect of a moral person. What is right for others? After defining what is right for you, you have to go to another level. What is right for others? And the last is transcendence. How you think the society, how you place yourself within the society so that society can benefit from you, to the society and beyond. You have to uphold the principle of justice to let the society feel good of you. And this is what will make you another good person, as a moral person, when you place yourself acceptable within standards of that particular society. And therefore, to that question, you will answer the question which says, which calls you to define what is the right for all. So you see, a moral person will seek what is right for him, but he will go beyond what is right for others, and he will go further beyond what is right to the right society. For example, you are Tanzanian. First, you have to know, you have moral autonomy. What is good for you? And therefore, think of those people in proximity, those closest friends to you, those people you work together, but also think of your nation in larger. How do you place yourself, good to yourself, good to others, and also good to society? This is the quality of a moral person in that context. And let's see, complete, or let us finish our lecture. Let us end our lecture by trying to see components of morality. Components of morality, a professional ethics perspective. Components of morality, and therefore we say components. What makes morality? And this is from the professional perspective. By considering our profession ethics, we as teachers, we as educators, we as guardians, what are the components of morality? What makes a morality? Morality. First is what we call moral motivation. Moral motivation as the one component. These are values motivate individuals to achieve goals and to get their behavior. Moral motivation. We have to know every morality must define moral motivation. What are the values that will motivate individuals to achieve goals and guide their behavior? Because normally our actions are guided by our motivation. How intrinsically and extrinsically we are motivated will define our action. Talk about motivation, extrinsic motivation and the intrinsic motivation. These two aspects of motivation must guide our actions. They are the force of our behavior and action in the society. Second is so-called moral sensitivity. This is an attribute of a person to be aware of something taking place within his environment, whether it's right or wrong. So consideration of which action are possible in the situation, who are the parties and the concerned, and how they would be affected by the consequences of each action is called moral sensitivity. You must be sensitive to any action taken within society. Which action is feasible to a particular situation? who are the bona fide beneficiaries, and what are the consequences of the action. You must be sensitive to whatever action taking place within your proxy, so that you can be able to practice your moral standards. And again, we have moral reasons, judgment about which course of action is morally right or fair. That's choosing one possible line of action is what one might want to do in that situation. Moral reasoning, ability to judge. You are the moral agent, ability to judge and decide which action to take in a particular situation. And the last is moral character. That will define who you are. Involve having courage and implementing skills to carry out a line of action even under pressure. Your character, you are a person of unchangeable character, whether in pressure or not in pressure, it remains the same. Character is what defines who you are. And I talked very much with this in this context concept when I was trying to give you the difference between the character and the reputation in the former class. I want to be able to repeat it earlier. So we have almost four components of morality. This is moral motivation, moral sensitivity, moral reasoning, and the moral character. Otherwise, I want to synthesize ethical and the moral challenges facing public servants in the context of Tanzania or the Tanzania context, of course. One is administrative discretion. Discretion, we talk about your good manner, administrative discretion. How reputable you are conducting your administrative duties is one of the ethical and moral challenges. How you exercise your administration roles in the office. Discretion, that's manner acceptable. Okay, your good manner, your good behavior in conducting administrative duties is what I refer to with administrative discretion. How do you guide? How you guide your actions in your office? How you abuse power in the office? How reputable are you in discharging public activities within your office? So administrative discretion is one of the issue which is one of the issue which is very challenging in most of the public servants, administrators in the public offices. When we talk about discretion, we talk about how you make wise choice. How you make wise choice or decision in discharging your administrative responsibilities. This is one of the ethical and the moral challenges facing public servants. Some of us, when we're in the office, we treat ourselves as a god, a small god in the office. We don't make wise choices, wise decisions. But when you are present in the public service in the office, you have to ensure that you discharge your duties with discretion, with the wise choice and the decision. Corruptions, using public properties for personal gain, is another problem facing public servants. We have nepotism, how you favor your friends when making decisions. You are in the office, maybe head of school, head of the education institution. When it comes to promotion, when it comes to opportunity to go for further studies, you have your those friends, whether they are your cohort in your former secondary schools or colleges or whatsoever. You tend to be prejudiced in discharging your duties. You show favoritism. Some people get more advantage than others. That's not good. Nepotism is not good. You find that some of the people in the office, they tend to give more opportunity to their friends and their closest people than they can go back to the merits and the qualification of persons supposed to be interested in the office. One will appoint ministers or whatsoever, or one will appoint heads of school, or will appoint some of the department heads because of friendly background, not because of their attributes or not because of their skills and their merits. That's very bad. One of the challenge in the public service. Also, we have pressure for conformity. Sometimes you are forced to conform to some of the some of the requirements. This also will put you to some temptation to misuse public properties in order to meet some of the issues. But also have this administrative secrets. How you see public offices, the public and the secret or confidential arena. You have to make use of those wisely. Sometimes you discuss issues in the meeting, and because before it is due time to disseminate them, you're out for it. It's very wrong. It's not acceptable. So administrative discretion is also administrative secrets is one of the challenges facing a public servant. They don't treat confidential matters in their context. You find that there's so many leakage of the information in the public offices because of some people who are not wise enough to hold public offices, and therefore we have information risks, examination. Sometimes even some of the higher meeting decisions, they get to the hands of people, unwise people, unacceptable people, and white people before it's time, and therefore you find that there's always conflicts and confrontation in the office, and therefore disturb conduct of the public offices. We have also public accountability. How accountable are you? How you safeguard properties under your care? About public accountability. How do you discharge your duties? How do you ensure that all the properties entrusted under your care are safe? Your office properties. How do you make use of them in the way it was supposed to be used? As another area you have to consider. And it's a big challenge to the public offices. We have also policy conundrum. There's challenges, conundrum. There's the confusion of policy implementation in the press. Which policy are you implementing? Which policy are you supporting to implement? Which position are you in the policy process? There's this is an unanswered question. There's this a confusion on the policy issues. So you have to be clearly defined yourself as part of implementing institutional policy, and therefore you must be loyal to your organization, to the public, and to your government. And of course, there's pressure group influence. That's like the conformity. Sometimes you can be wise by yourself. You can be very, very decent by yourself. But because of your friends, your peers, they put pressure on you. You find yourself misusing public properties just to appease or to make them happy. And of course, that's not acceptable in such public duties. And finally, there's also what's called the public scrutiny. Public scrutiny. This word is quite important for you to underscore. We talk about public scrutiny. Let me have something here for you. We talk about public scrutiny. We talk about participation. Let me put it very, very, very simple. You put the public in the pressure. For example, you're a public servant, and sometimes you are holding to another ideology, political ideology. So sometimes you don't belong to the public affairs. You find yourself sometimes challenging the government issues always in public. So public scrutiny. You examine your public conduct in the way which is not acceptable. You are always inspecting the public activities or the public performance, the government performance, and you seem to be against what is taking place in the public. When you are employed as a public servant, you are part of the public service. In fact, you are part of the government itself, and therefore you must be very keen and be very, very aware when you are bringing your challenges to whatever happening to your government. It's very important because it is like you are trying to support the government, which is the same. You are part of it, so you must be very aware and you must be very wise whenever there's something which is not good. I think the person government, whether you are involved or not involved, But because of being a public servant, you must be sending the interest of public first before you can go to deep examination of what is going on for the interest of others. It won't add you anything by challenging the government negatively because you are part of the government. So that's what I thought is very wise for you to capture in this lecture, and therefore I hope with your discussion you will have a very good time, very ample time to go deep with this lecture, discuss this lecture, and if there's any area not understood, you don't hesitate to reach me in my office in the normal consultants hours, but also can reach me via Moodle services by putting your question or your the point which was not clear in the Moodle platform, or even by emailing me in that official mail I've just shared with you, so that you can have another discussion to make more elaborations on areas not quite clear. Otherwise, thank you very much for attending this lecture, this online individual training. Thank you.